My government must quit Twitter and call out Elon Musk's far-right hate. We're going to read this piece here, this argument piece here from an MP called Noah Law from Byline Times. Let's go right into it. So it says the Labour MP Noah Law explains why it's time for Keir Starmer to start treating the billionaire ex-owner as the foreign extremist that he now is. Now, do I think that that Labour MPs, there should be a boycott of the government from quitting Twitter? In my personal opinion, no. Now, obviously, if you're not part of the government, if you're in the politics and whatnot, and it's literally your discretion whether you want to be a part of Twitter or not. I know there's quite a few people who are subscribers to my comments who don't want anything to do with X or quit Twitter ages ago because it was too toxic. And you're absolutely right. Twitter is a very toxic area. However, it's also an abundance of source of information as well. I don't usually get into engagements with people on Twitter, to be fair. Normally, I just literally just watch what happens on there rather than respond. Even if I see something that is profoundly untrue and disagreeing, sometimes it's just not worth to get into an argument with them. However, in terms of the government's perspective, I don't see what the benefit of quitting Twitter is going to do, because there is still an echo chamber on there of people on the right, people on the far right, extreme views. And I still think that the government being on there will still benefit them rather than having no voice on there to kind of detach themselves completely from it. I know some people will say, yeah, that it won't really make a difference if the government does quit Twitter. I don't think it'll make the end of the world, but I also think it's important that the ministers and members of government are having their voice heard in as many places as they possibly can, even if it's in places that many people don't agree with them, like on Twitter. Even in places that are like fringe social medias like Blue Sky, which is more of a lefty social media platform. I think having these voices in as many places is important. I think it's really important for them to get their messages across, even if you fundamentally disagree with them from that perspective here. But no, I think that we should just clear away from it completely. And this is obviously based on what Elon Musk said at the far-right Tommy Robinson rally. He wasn't actually there, but he said via video link, basically saying that people need to, if you don't fight back, you're not going to have a country left sort of rhetoric. Basically saying that you have to fight or you're going to die, basically, which is nonsense. It's really, really scaremongering tactics that people are really thinking that their country is dying or something, which I can tell you that we are in a cost of living crisis, that there are many, many problems, but to say that the country is dying is a bit folly. And it's extremely exaggerated. And, and trying to blame everything on immigrants is absolutely insane. Well, at the same time, a lot of those people who were protesting, by the way, were also getting Indian takeaways on the same day of that protest as well. Just because they can. So let's hear what the argument piece is. So we've done defence, and now we need to go on the offence. With the far right marching on our streets paid for by foreign billionaires and bolstering Putin's cyber warfare machine, we cannot afford to sit back. This is not just a passive nuisance, but a deliberate attempt to destabilise our democracy. I was one of the first Labour MPs to leave Twitter back last summer when its owners obviously conflict of interest in being donor, administrator and platform to propaganda outlet owner became apparent. That was a basic defensive move to protect against a website which has become a highly particle cesspit of misinformation and algorithmically charged hate. Again, I understand that perspective, and I personally think the government should stay on. But if the government chose to leave, I wouldn't be like crying wolf. At the end of the day, it is their choice. I mean, I personally think they should remain on there. But again, it's discretion, really, is what I would say. But we are in the centre. And on the left. I wouldn't call this Labour government the left. I don't agree with that perspective. But let's just hear the rest of it. And also need to get our own house in order. I hear and understand that the left need to be properly heard, and the frustration in their views has not been given enough weight by a government that has lost more voters to smaller left parties and then even to reform since last year, at least in my constituency. But now, more than ever, we must ourselves unite and stop indulging in conspiracy theories about Labour being captured by sinister forces when the truth is simpler, and that the party has been guided by people who wanted, above all, to make us electable again, with analysis of that in 2024 was proven to be correct. No. That it was not proven. The analysis did not prove to be incorrect. Let me push back this thought process that people voted Labour because they wanted Labour in 2024. No, The overwhelming majority of the public did not want a Conservative government anymore. So, as an alternative, they voted you in because they wanted the Conservatives out. That's why a lot of people voted Labour in Scotland, not because they were tired of the SNP, but because they wanted the Conservatives gone as well. People did not want Conservatives anymore, and any kind of tactical voting that people participated in, they made sure to vote whatever way to make sure that the Conservatives were kicked out. People just wanted no more Conservative government. That was the main reason. It wasn't because they trusted Keir Starmer, they trusted the Labour government in any way, shape or form. It was because they wanted the Conservatives gone. It was mainly about them. It's not a case of we wanted a Labour. There will be some that did, but the vast majority of the British public just wanted the Conservatives out because they were tired. Equally, the left must stop sounding like an apologist for a broken migration system. As though we were acceptable to risk one crossing the channel on a dinghy, is it not? And be clear, they can fix this problem overnight if they want to, the Labour government, by creating safe and legal routes, and they choose not to. This is a problem that must be fixed for humanitarian reasons as well as social cohesion. But equally, we must be clear, this is not some orchestrated invasion. No, it's not. As some would like us to believe. We put ourselves in the shoes of others who understandably want to make their journey, fleeing home nations where their lives are at worst in danger or at best severely lacking hope and opportunity. We must also remember that there is surely a reason they are choosing the UK as opposed to other European nations. I've discussed this numerous reasons why, and bear in mind, that we are not like we are like mid-table when it comes to immigration intakes in Europe in comparison to other European nations. And it's also worth pointing out that there could quite a lot of reasons are family connections. Quite a lot of reasons might be something to do with I don't know, something called the British Empire that we were once was. Our historic connections to a lot of nations across the world is probably another reason why people were coming there. There also is obviously because of our glorious empire. Some people like to still think of it as, back then. There are historical connections that people have to Britain, as well as the language barrier. As well as the language is also much easier, as opposed to learning French, German, or another European language. So there's a lot of caveats that you're not taking into account here. So perhaps due to family links or linguistics or historic reasons, which I just literally said. And finally, we must be able to be honest with ourselves that at 0.1% of GDP, it is not a cost of migrant hotels that has broken our public service for 14 years of conservative austerity. Conservative austerity has definitely played its part. Nobody's arguing that. But Brexit and the disruption to the pandemic and not recovering from that has also been two major factors as well. And the war in Ukraine has also amplified has also costing us as well. We must also, as the far right often call out scapegoating and blatant racism for what it is, and ensure social media platforms provide some of the same protections. While threatening racism didn't suddenly become lawful because it spouted online, or many people allowed to pass them on by social media, would be shocking to read in print, or hear from a family member or a friend around a dinner table. UK government's departments would do well to recognise the same, that Twitter is not an impartial platform, nor is giving an increasingly narrow user base, a place where our government needs to be. It's not impartial on Facebook or other social media outlets, to be fair, either. They're not completely and totally fair. We must go further and root out these marginalised influences in our politics, tighten our rules on online transparency, the foreign funding of campaigns and the regulation of disinformation. And now that Musk is out of the White House and openly backing an even more extremist version of reform here at home, he's no longer a public servant, just a deeply unpopular foreign extremist, and he should be treated accordingly. So too should those marching in our streets under the banner of hate. They do not represent British values. They warp themselves in Union Jacks and St George's Cross, but debase it, and it falls to us, the majority, to unite and prove that they will not defy our future. Well, unfortunately, the flag is essentially, to be an extent, is being hijacked there by the far right, by the extremists in there, and some of those people who took part in those protests on Saturday do have concerns. They're not. It wouldn't be right for me to say that every single one of them are racist, bigoted. I think a lot of them are simply misguided. Have been misinformed about what's actually happening in the UK. I generally think it's a case of misinformation, just like Brexit was. Brexit was a case of misinformation. I don't lie when I said I've told people that I voted for Brexit, and I made a mistake voting for Brexit back then, because my differences was nothing to do with immigration. It was my fault was I think that some of our laws would be better if they weren't in the EU. But I wasn't neck deep in politics back then, and it wasn't until after that I learned that it was a mistake. But at least I can be candid and be honest about, I got it wrong. But some people out there don't want to be proven wrong or be told that they are wrong, and it's okay to be wrong sometimes. But these people, they're not all racist, mindless thugs. Some of them are, and that's not an argument. Some of them are raceless, mindless thugs, but to say all of them are is a bit folly. It's a bit folly, but there's a lot of them there who are simply misguided, is the word that I would like to use. But what do you guys honestly think? What do you guys make of this argument piece here by Noah Law? I've struggled to get on board with some of it because obviously it's a Labour MP. But maybe some of you will disagree. Maybe some of you agree with some of the things that Noah said. But let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below. Now, if you found this video interesting and informative, hit that like button, share it across social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content as well. And if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Click the join button down below the screen to become a member. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.